Hey guys, hope you're all well. Board now back with you for Frightfest 2020 Day 2. So, my second review so far, and this is of a movie called Blind, which is a 2019 movie, but I'm assuming this is the first time it's been shown in the UK. And in case you missed it, my first Fright Fest review for this year was of a movie called There's No Such Thing as Vampires. So you can find out if the movie lives up to the title by checking out my review on the channel now. And of course, throughout the weekend, I will be reviewing more Fright Fest premieres. So yes, Blind, no surprise by the title, it's about a blind woman. It's set in Hollywood, and it's that kind of old kind of trope about a fading type actress. And she was sort of forced into retirement because she was blinded by laser surgery, which went badly. So that's kind of like a metaphor for the image obsessed culture in Hollywood. And it's all about really her confidence or lack of confidence, the way this character, Faye her name is, and I'm sure that's a deliberate like name, sort of naming her after like the King Kong actress. So I think that's definitely a deliberate reference. And just how losing her eyesight shook her, and I think that's why she's gone into retirement and her career sort of took a knock. And we see at the start how she's really grieving and missing those sort of glory days where she got to live her dream, and she now is in the process of coming to terms with day-to-day life as a blind woman. We see her with her friend Sophia, who's basically her counsellor and her support network. They've developed a really close bond. Sophia is blind herself, but the difference is she's been blind since birth. And there's also a friend of hers called Luke, who's a close friend, and he hosts like meetings. And the twist on his character is that he's actually mute, and there's kind of a budding relationship romance between those two, and kind of brings up questions of can they make it work? He's a mute, she's blind. But of course, the horror element comes in because there's a weird, creepy dude in the basement who we slowly see bits from as we build up to like the second art film, and he's absolutely obsessed with Faye. We see him like creepingly like working on this doll, doing various things, because there's this whole room which Faye doesn't go down to anymore because of her losing her eyesight, and that's where this character is, this like madman, and he becomes the threat. So he's basically obsessed with her and wants to be with her, fantasizes over her. We see like a dream sequence at one point with them like dancing together, and it's this fantastical like dream sequence. And as a consequence, it puts her friends in danger, and obviously puts Faye in danger. So that's the setup, pretty basic traditional setup, and it's not too bad actually. It's I'd say it's solid overall, about above average. It's a very low budget film. I think at times that told. I think because of that it came across as quite sort of soapy and a little bit cliche in some of the directing. I think the way they were cutting around things, like the kills, although they're not too bad, I think you could see there was, yeah, you didn't really get a full-blooded kill, and some of them did look quite cheap. Like there's one where this like delivery guy is being choked, outside, and it's like the killer behind him, and it just looks very weak. It doesn't look like a very convincing choke, unlike the classic kill in Halloween, the original Halloween with Michael Myers, with the foam wire, that, or him choking out Laurie's friend in the back of the car. That looks like a really physical, just choke out kill, which is really effective. So there's certain limitations in this film because I think of the budget and certain directing choices. But overall, it is solid. I think I partly liked it because of the relationships and the characters. They are actually quite likable. I thought the lead actress did a pretty good job as well. I think she came across as quite vulnerable. Obviously, something the film does is it kind of explores like her state of mind, what it's like to walk around in her shoes, and her day to day life, and how something like this is potentially going to put her at threat. I like actually the style of the opening. I think the way it opens with her in her garden and she's like cutting flowers, and there's this quite nice little sharp noise as she cuts like the roses, and it has this sort of potent sort of kind of energy to it. And I think scenes like that is where the kind of HD, very kind of low budget, grainy sort of video camera actually works quite well. Um, so I thought it got inside her head quite well. I thought it was quite well paced, although it did feel that the pacing did drag in certain scenes. There were definitely scenes where there was too much dialogue and just drawn out a bit, particularly in the second half of the film. But as I said, the relationships and the characters were quite nice. There was a nice bit of humour like between her and Luke, and I sort of did appreciate like their relationship a little bit, like a scene where she like, because she's already admitted that she likes him but is too afraid to ask him out, and a scene where she actually embarrasses herself in front of him, like because she hears someone rings the bell and it's Luke, and he's been getting advice from Sophia how to approach her basically, and this whole big sort of scheme. But because she can't see, and she just thinks it's Faye at the door, and so she embarrasses herself by letting it slip, and she actually likes Luke, and I quite like that. They have quite a nice little relationship. And I think Sophia's very likable as well. She has this quite big personality and is quite sort of bubbly but quite tough as well, and very supportive. Um, it's, although there are, as I said, soapy things in it, I think it is actually quite a positive like representation of blind people and sort of what they go through. And you get at one point like Luke holds this meeting, as I said. Um, but also I think there was quite a decent sort of atmosphere to it as it kind of built quite a nice mood. I like some of the stuff down in the basement with this character and the way it was going back and forth between him. As a threat himself, I don't think he's that convincing. I guess he's okay. I like some of the stuff they were doing, playing with like the beauty and the beast type dynamic. The dream sequence, as I said, was quite interesting, quite effective. And the first kill with when he kidnaps Sophia and has her in the basement, that's actually pretty cool. The way he sort of pops out of nowhere, and it's quite a quick sort of like throat slit, but that's quite a cool little kill. As I said, that the trope, like it's like Christmas lights or something. He's choking the delivery guy out with, and that was a very contrived moment. I think there are predictable moments like that, because the delivery guy, sort of one of the running gags is that when people bump into Faye, they recognise her off because she used to be on this hit sort of show or soap or something. We actually see an interview with her at the start, back when she was an actress and had a successful career. We see her watching that interview and getting all sort of emotional. But yeah, there's this sort of gag with like this delivery guy who drops off her food and he recognises her. And it's this running theme throughout the film of like fan obsession sort of thing. He's starstruck, but he's also very creepy. And I thought at first they were setting him up as a red herring, but I mean, as the scene moves along, it is so telegraphed that he's gonna get killed off, because he's a real perv. He like, because obviously she can't see him, so he kind of sneaks into the house and plays with like her underwear and stuff. And he sort of wanders out and he takes a photo from the outside, but the camera just lingers on him for so long, so it is telegraphed that he's gonna get choked out or killed, and that's what happens. And it's a pretty weak kill, but I think it's a solid little film. I think they do build a decent little atmosphere. At one point there's a cop who gets killed because she calls him, that being Faye, because she kind of realizes that someone's been in the house. And at first he like looks around all the rooms, he can't find anything. But she does mention this one room which she never uses anymore. And the cop checks that out. But it's sort of like his mistake, because he actually goes in the house without telling her and just checks out the room. Now, I don't know if that's because he was a bit suspicious of her, but maybe he just thought she would never let him like try that room, because she's already said no, that's all right, you don't need to bother. But anyway, he goes into the room and she obviously doesn't know he's there, and he ends up getting killed. He finds Sophia's body and is killed. And there's quite a nice little thing they do at the end with her and Luke, because she gives him a call and sort of says, sorry about earlier, sorry, it's awkward, I would like to see you. And there's this whole thing where she doesn't know that it's the killer. The killer, as Luke comes round, kills him, and suddenly we see him appear, in Luke's blood and that. But Sophia doesn't know Faye doesn't know who it is. And this extended scene where he's just sitting there listening, and it's almost like he's living out his fantasy, because she doesn't know who it is. And it's an interesting scene, and it's quite creepy. It is contrived because obviously he doesn't say anything for ages, and obviously if it was Luke, he would have said something by now. So it's kind of contrived, and one of these scenes that they do drag out a bit too long, but I kind of like what they're doing, so I sort of forgive them about it. And she's opening up to him, and it builds to the climax where they're obviously about to get intimate, but she still doesn't know it's the guy. And he drops a petal on her, because obviously he's been watching her in her garden, so kind of knows this stuff, and a bit of blood drips on her. And that's obviously when they cut to credits, and she's obviously now realizing, yeah, this isn't Luke. But I do actually kind of like that scene with him just like listening to her in the dark. And actually before the stuff when she's called Luke, there's this eerie sort of scene where he's like recreating the dance scene from his like fantasy, because she's swaying to some music and just letting herself go, and it's quite loose, and he's like dancing along without actually touching her, he's just there. and so that's quite cool as well. I think little sequence. And I did wonder if there was going to be some backstory to him. I wondered if maybe he was going to be the surgeon who operated on her, and if there was that sort of connection, and that's why he became obsessed with her. Now he's obviously disfigured because he's got like a mask on, and at one point, actually, I do like the scene with the police officer because after he's killed him, we actually do get a bit of graphic like horror where he like literally like rips his eyes out, sort of cuts his eyes out. So that's quite a cool, scrungy little scene. And then we see later, at the end scene, he kind of has like his eye. He's taken the police officer's eye and put it on himself. All kind of freaky, but it's never made quite clear who he is. It could just be like another obsessed or fan, but I got the impression maybe there was something where he might have been from her past. So he could have been the plastic surgeon or something. I don't know. I mean, I might be reaching with that, but there you have it. Not a bad little film. I think I thought it was solid at least. So overall, yeah, I'd say check it out. I think there's something here for horror fans of this sort of almost straight to like video type. It almost had a 90s sort of sheen to it, that sort of thriller type 90s film. So that's Blind. So likable characters, as I said. Decent performances, I thought, in the lead cast. Not too bad overall. Solid tension. Yeah, definitely things wrong with it, but overall not too bad. So I'll give it a 6 out of 10. So that's Blind, my latest Frightfest review, and stay tuned for more Frightfest reviews. I will be back with a few more before the end of the weekend. If you've been watching any Frightfest films online, then let me know what you've seen so far, what you're thinking of the festival this year. And please comment in the comments below, like and subscribe if you are new to the channel. But stay tuned for more Frightfest reviews. Thanks for listening and goodbye.